Thank you for your attention in my Dharma talk. Please do make yourself comfortable, but not too comfortable. We don't want you falling asleep. And it's a pointer to our practice is not to just find a comfort zone and go there and just to hang out in a comfort zone. It's actually to maintain a great intensity of your presence such that when edges do come, that you're able to meet them fully and be with them and embrace them. So there's no pushing anything away. And if your orientation is towards comfort, you just want to be comfortable, then it's not a great practice mindset to have. So it's good to maintain a certain formality, of your posture and a certain alertness, of your listening quality. Hopefully, I'll say some things that provoke in some way. There might be an edge there, at least a curiosity, that'll provoke something, and it won't just be stuff you've heard before, something putting you to sleep. Just so you're comfortable. We all have busy lives and stressful lives. So we also need rest and comfort. And our practice is to bring our whole heart, body, and mind to accepting all the experiences that move through us, especially the uncomfortable ones and the edge ones. So that's what I want to talk about today is Bardo koan. I'll say more about what I mean, by those terms, how I understand them. I wanted to start off by kind of segueing from Shoen's talk last week. Some of you were there and others might have seen the video. He's talking about, I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you, Shoen. I liked it. It was about, the theme was to be sufficient, do you have enough? And he looked at the context of our Sangha and our practice context, these days, and how we can compare it to other times and places and ask whether, things were better then. And I agree with what he said, that right now is always perfect. Would it be better for us to be there? No. Was practice stronger there? Who knows? For some people, yes. For other people, no. The most important thing is that we always have the opportunity to practice with our own lives, and we only have the opportunity to practice with our own lives, wherever it may be. So that has to be the focus. So it's important to recognize that we are sufficient in this moment. We're perfect. Every single one of us is perfect right now in this moment. You're lacking nothing. Nothing. You don't have to be more awake. You don't have to be more like Buddha. You don't have to be calmer. You don't have to be more anything or less anything than you are right now. And you never have to be. What you are right now is perfect. And that's of utmost importance, to be able to accept ourselves in this way. But that doesn't mean that we become reliant upon or complacent, I guess is the word that comes to me, about how we are, right? In terms of the state that I'm in is the right state. Okay. You're perfect now, and now, and now, and tonight, and tomorrow, and the next day, and yesterday, and last year, and 5 years ago. And you were different in all of those different times. Right? You're always perfect. Doesn't mean perfection is a state. You just happen to be perfect all the time. So we just tend to fixate on these states, and these definitions of who we are and how we are. And we strive for, being a certain way and feeling a certain way, and we strive to be a certain person. And the suffering comes when, we don't get what we want. We don't become who we want. Right? It's always these uncomfortable places that arise in our not okayness. That's the point of practice. That is the opportunity for Zen practice, right there. That gap that arises between the situation of the world, the situation of your world, the state of your world, and your acceptance of it. Suffering arises in that gap. So that's the place of our practice, is to be with that. And as you progress in practice, you may find yourself almost seeking out, like having a real invitation within your own body to these edgy, uncomfortable places. The transitions are like this, right? Things are changing, and change is difficult, can be difficult. Elicits our fear of what's next, or concerns about what's next. Our concerns and fears about what we're losing. So things are always changing, right? It's one of the seals of Buddhism, that we're impermanent. Everything is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. All phenomena are constantly changing, arising, persisting, falling away, and then empty. Always, never stops. So Bardo, most of you have probably heard that term. It actually goes way back to pre-Buddhist, and then it kind of got introduced into Buddhist thinking right after the time of the Buddha. I don't think he spoke specifically about something like the Bardo, but pretty quickly it came into Buddhism, and then Tibetan Buddhism has, of course, elaborated it quite a lot with the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And it speaks there of the Bardo, the formal Bardo as being the transition time between one life and another incarnation. Right? But there's a more expansive understanding of Bardo, which is the one that I want to focus on now. And that's the Bardo that we are all always in and moving through every moment. There's a great book I want to give a little quote from. It's by Mingyur Rinpoche. The book is called In Love with the World, A Monk's Journey Through the Bardos of Living and Dying. It's I guess it came out in 2011. It was recommended to me by my barista down in Boulder about 3 or 4 years ago. And I picked it up then, and I read the first part of it, and I quite enjoyed it. And I went back to it for this quote. He said, when we move past the convenience of language and categories, so I should say he's talking about what he calls the Bardo of becoming, which is always happening. We're always in. When we move past the convenience of language and categories, every second manifests the Bardo of becoming, becoming and becoming. All phenomena always just become. When we sensitize ourselves to the subtle transitions of emotions or of bodily change, or shifts in social circumstances, or environmental transformations, such as differences in landscape and light, or developments in language, art, or politics, we see that it's all always changing, dying, and becoming. So quite an expansive and also intimate understanding of this Bardo of becoming. It's everything from the shift in light or the shift in a feeling within your body to changes in art and society, right? It's all together, always changing forms. It's quite amazing, really, this great mystery of transformation that we're in the midst of. Working with the Bardo now. So, Tibetan Buddhism works with it in a certain way, but I want to talk about working with this Bardo state, or state isn't the right word because it's not static, right? It's everything changing. So this Bardo realm, working with this Bardo realm as the opportunity to work with it as koan. So everything's always changing. All of our sensations, our understanding. It's when the disturbance arises that there is the opportunity to look at the koan. Okay? When that edge comes up, when there's something in the changingness of the forms as they emerge that elicits some reaction to you. That's the great opportunity to look inside and to see, well, what is happening inside with me? I would oftentimes go into Shishin Roshi and Dokusan, and when I was stuck in a place, he would often ask me, so what are you holding on to? What are you holding on to? And sometimes that was frustrating to hear, But that's, of course, the key question. Right? He could see that I was creating my stuckness by holding on to something. It's quite a compassionate way to help me look at that so that I could release it. He definitely didn't tell me, hey, you're holding on to this thing and you need to let it go. For one reason is that he didn't necessarily know. A student comes into Dokusan and I don't always know what they're holding on to, but I can usually tell that they're holding on to something, certainly in their expression. And he was very artful, very skilled in Dokusan in asking me the question, what I was holding on to. And I would always, I would turn inside, and sometimes it took me a while to identify what I was holding on to. And sometimes I never even got it. I needed I needed for it to emerge again, a week or a month or a year later for me to see what I was holding on to in that time. That's what we do. Sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't. But we could also look at what is holding on to you. What's holding on to you? What has captured your attention? When you face this disturbance around a transition, a particular transition, something arises. What is holding on to you? What grabs you and that you can't let it go? Whatever it is that's holding on to you is giving you a clue about an identification within yourself, who you feel yourself to be at an unconscious level. And that's what koan work is. It's to really apply ourselves with this intensity of meditative awareness to our own body mind, to a particular question, in such a way that our own sense of self shifts. So something appears as an obstacle, something appears as a difficulty, something captures our attention and keeps us from moving fluidly forward with our life. What is it? We go right into that feeling. Investigate that. Investigate that edge condition that has come up. What does it feel like? Your mind may tell you all sorts of things, but your body is giving you information. About who you think you are. These koans are truly gateless gates. That's the name of the first collection. Mumonkan means gateless gate. So it's a doorway that appears to be an obstacle. It appears to be a difficulty. It appears to be a threshold of some sort. But there's no gate there. There's nothing stopping you from walking right through. But you do have to walk through. You can turn and walk the other direction, and then you're not doing your Zen practice. At least you're not doing this form of Zen practice. But to practice koan, life as koan, is to walk into that door. And that means to enter into, embody, and accept the experience of the edge, of the discomfort. And to move through it. You know, these feelings arise, and we usually, we can bypass them, or we can interrupt them, or they get interrupted. I don't say we don't always interrupt them, but sometimes they get interrupted. Sometimes they get interrupted by us, and then sometimes they get interrupted by the outside. It's very important to sequence the feelings that arise within the body, because whenever they do get interrupted or bypassed or resisted, then they're creating those internal blockages within the body. And you're not moving the energy through them. So working with your life on koan in this way, it's very vibrant, it's very alive. You know, it's not resting in a place and then just trying to figure something out. Uncomfortable. It's putting yourself into this uncomfortable place. And when you do that with consciousness and with the right effort, you know, pushing too hard, you're not collapsing, you know, then the koan works on you. And that koan can be an argument with your partner, a question about your career, a fear or a worry that you have in your life. These are all life koans. As you develop in your practice, the koans get more and more powerful. It's almost like the universe fills in and meets you with exactly the level of intensity and challenge that you're capable of handling. I've seen this to be true. And I see smiles on some people's faces. I know that you feel that way too. And sometimes we're presented with the same koan over and over because, we haven't fully sequenced through that particular koan. So, an example might be you could have a fight with your partner, and it's very difficult, and there's recriminations back and forth and strong feelings, and it lasts for 2 days. The feelings last for 2 days. Okay, it happens, definitely. Maybe that's what needed to happen, is that level of movement. But as you practice working with your own life as a koan, then your courage develops, and you're able, like, more and more, like at the beginning of the process, to just really throw yourself into it, to not resist, to not bypass, to not back up, to not aggress, right? Just to be there and hold your seat and be authentic and feel the feelings, but without reacting. And then an argument can be something that lasted 2 days, might last half an hour, might last less, because now you're like, oh, I've shot these rapids before. I've done this. Here we go. All right. And then the 5th time or the 10th time or the 100th time, you're like, oh yeah, here we go. Let's do it. Shooting the rapids is really fun if you know what you're doing. It's really alive. And there's no time for self-consciousness, right? There's no time for, like, this is me and this is what I want and this is what I want to control, and none of that, right? I mean, that's why people do that stuff, right? There's jumping out of airplanes and shooting rapids and all that stuff. It's that there's no self-consciousness. You're just, I know there's probably some skiers, in here too. It's right on the edge, right? You can live your life that way, but you got to be willing to go into the difficult places, and this type of work is even more, it's deeper, right? Because there's more like physical danger. Open yourself up to emotional threats and emotional pain. That's harder, I think. Yeah, it's terrifying, to not be someone. The threat of existential nothingness, if you're really willing to face that. Oh, I'm actually not a person the way I thought I was. It'd be exhilarating. You have to have the courage to apply yourself to all of the edges and discomforts within yourself as they arise. Yeah, we always have to work with our karma. We only have our own karma and our own lives to work with. And how beautiful is that? You're not living anyone else's life. Why would you want to? And everybody in the history of this practice has done this, worked with their own stuff, their own lives. Zhang Shi, one of Bodhidharma's successors, woman, she did it with her life. Dogen did it with his life. Hakuin did it with his life. Old woman Ryu, Zen master, did it with her life. Ling Zhao, Layman Pang's daughter, did it with her life. All of us. All of us here. We do it with our own lives. It's the field of our practice, always and only. And there's so many opportunities throughout the day, to practice with yourself. If you make your life really comfortable, you can make it too comfortable. You really can. And then because the real work is done in the challenging places, in the liminal places, when you do push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and then you face the difficult stuff that comes up. This is not a pacifying practice at all. Zen is a very intense practice. We put ourselves into these places of discomfort. Bernie Glassman, he kind of took this practice and he just went right out into the streets, and he actualized, what I'm talking about, which is working with the transitions and the just uncomfortable places of your life, of our life, as koan, in order to wake up in that context. And he took it, right out on the streets. And I suspect he felt there was too much of a pacifistic, perhaps kind of something, happening in the Zendo, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Shoen probably knows better than I do about that, so I won't put words in his mouth. But I do know that the way he talked about plunges, we're plunging into an uncomfortable situation and then being fully present with it, what arises in the body and mind, and then being with it and moving through it and sequencing through it and showing up with heart, showing up with body. Yeah, so it's a plunge. So that's what we do in this practice, is we plunge, we really plunge into these uncomfortable spaces. Okay. So if your life is too comfortable and you want to progress in your practice, but find the edges of what you're comfortable with. Plunge. Do it in a way that will expand your purview, expand your heart, expand your mind. Right? So many opportunities to do that. If you want to, I'm not scolding anyone, but that's how you can progress in this practice. Is continue to have that orientation towards the difficult places. This Bardo is magnificent. Thank you for your time and attention.